Jak co tydzień nie mogę się doczekać, kiedy padnie to pytanie: What's the Parsha, pani Zosia?
This week is a special Shabbat in the Jewish calendar, as it is the Shabbat between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, during the Aseret Yemei Teshuvah, the 10 days of repentance. The rabbis called this Shabbat, Shabbat Shuvah. The reason is because we have a special Haftarah, which is a reading from the prophets, which we read during this Shabbat, which begins with the word Shuvah. It is by one of the prophets called Hosea, in which he turns to the children of Israel and he says, Shuva Yisrael ad Adonai Elohecha ki kashalta babonecha, which means, return, O Israel, back to the Lord, back to God, because you have sinned and you have failed in your quest to follow the right path. And how do you return to God? His next words are Kechu imachem devarim v'shuvu el Hashem, which means take within you, or takes amongst you, devarim, which is translated into biblical Hebrew as words, and with those words return to God. It's very interesting because you would expect that the way ancient Israelites would return to God would be with sacrifices, with incense, famous kind of cultic animal sacrifices that were used to attain forgiveness. Comes along the prophet Hosea and says, leave those aside. What you need in order to have tshuva is simply your mouth. It's simply your words. It's simply your lashon, which is the word for your tongue in Hebrew, and that's where we get the word lashon hara. When you use your tongue, when you use your mouth for slander, for gossip, for negative, for making fun of people, then you're taking something that God gave us, this special gift, and you're turning it into something deadly, into a weapon. But conversely, if you take your mouth and you praise people, and you do mitzvot, and you pray, and you speak nicely about people, then what you engage in is lashon tov, and turning what God gave you into something positive, into a mitzvah. The message of the Parsha is very appropriate for our Shabbat. It's Shabbat when we work on ourselves, when we try to get closer to God for Yom Kippur. And one of the ways in which we get closer to God is learning how to use our language, our speech, our special gift of communication in the best way possible. In our Parsha Vayelech, Moshe tells the children of Israel of one of the last mitzvot. One of the last mitzvot is called hakel, which means gather. Who was supposed to gather? The king was supposed to gather all the nation of Israel after the holidays, after the 7th year. He gathers all the people together and he gives a speech. Now, what would you expect from a king? What kind of speech? Usually it would be a political discussion. Usually he would talk about armies, he would talk about battle, he would talk about settling the land. And here the Torah says, no. You know what the king should do? V'kara et kol haTorah azot. He should read the Torah to the children of Israel. And the people of Israel would realize, wow, our king, who is our mighty warrior, who is our diplomat, who is our great communicator to the outside world, is also our spiritual guide. He's also one who is in touch with his spirituality, his God. He's also one to use his mouth for powers of good and for powers of pure spirituality. One of the greatest kings was King David, and here is a perfect example of he was a fierce warrior. He was a great politician, but he was the one who gave us the Psalms. He was the one who taught us how to use our mouth to speak to God throughout our lives and throughout all of Israel's existence. Those Psalms are what we use in order to connect to God and in order to pray to God. In this Shabbat Shuvah, let us, in the community of Krakow, in the Jewish community of Poland, throughout the world, learn the great message from Hosea the prophet. Kechu imachem devarim v'shuvu el Hashem. The way to return to God is first and foremost with our speech, with our communication, with our ability to take God's great gift of speech and to turn it into something beautiful, into something spiritual. Shabbat Shalom.